Hello and welcome. My name is Alan and we are back with more 2025 to 2026 state governments and officials. Today we are looking at the state of South Dakota. This was meant to be Saturday's video, by the way. Anyway, we're doing it now. Okay. With that out of the way, where is my mouse? There you go. South Dakota, nicknamed the Mount Rushmore State. You can see where it sits in the U.S. Capital of the state is Pierre, but the largest city is Sioux Falls. Let's see. The official languages are English and Sioux, which is the language spoken by the native peoples who live there. Anyway, landlocked state in the north central region of the U.S., part of the Great Plains, named after the Dakota Sioux tribe, which comprises a large portion of the population and has historically dominated the territory. It is the 17th largest state by area, but the 5th least populous and the 5th least densely populated. Pierre is the state capital, and Sioux Falls the most populous city with 213,000 people. Missouri River splits the state into two geographically and socially distinct halves, colloquially known as the East River and West River. South Dakota is bordered by North Dakota to the north, Minnesota to the east, Iowa to the southeast, Nebraska to the south, Wyoming to the west, and Montana to the northwest. So yeah, again, we get a look at where it sits in the nation. But yeah, let's take a look at the government, because I wasn't able to find a constitutional list in Wikipedia, so y'all need to fix that. There was a link that said Constitution of South Dakota, but it just reverted me back to this page. So yeah, y'all need to fix that. But anyway, just like the national government, 3 branches, executive, legislative, and judicial, even though that don't seem to matter no more in the fucking national government, because people wanted a fucking king with this shit bag we got in office. Sorry, getting off topic. Laid out in the Constitution of South Dakota, and which the Constitution itself may be amended either by majority vote of both houses of the legislature or by voter initiative. Now, executive branch of South Dakota, headed by the governor, who has the power to either sign into law or veto bills passed by the state legislature, serves as commander-in-chief of the state's armed services, and appoints heads to the departments of his cabinet and commute criminal sentences or to pardon those convicted of crimes. He or she serves a 4-year term and may not serve more than 2 consecutive terms. There used to be no limit, but a 1947 change to the Constitution for South Dakota made it so that, yeah, they can't serve any more than 2 consecutive terms. Governor currently is Larry Roden from Sturgis. Then you have a number of other elected officials in the executive branch. Lieutenant Governor Tony Van Heusen, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Attorney General Marty Jackley, Commissioner of School and Public Lands Brock Greenfield, Secretary of State Monet Johnson, and State Auditor Rich Sackgast, and Treasurer Josh Hader. But anyway, with that, let's dig a little further into the governor, if I can get my mouse to cooperate with me here. Governor of South Dakota. Not down there, up here. There you go. There's an image of Larry Roden, the current governor. South Dakota as a territory was just known as the Dakota Territory, formed in 1861. It would eventually split and be North and South Dakota, kind of the way Carolina was a state by itself and then split into North and South Carolina shortly before the Revolution. So yeah, 4-year terms. In even years when there is no presidential election. So 2024 was the last election for president. That means 2026 is when their next governor should be up for election. This is also the state that dog killer Kristi Noem is from, who now heads the Department of Homeland Security, under which ICE, the Gestapo for Trump, is under. To be governor, you must be a citizen of the U.S., at least 21 years old, and a resident of the state for at least 2 years by the time of the election. We talked about some of the rights they had, what they do, grant pardons, fill vacancies in the legislature until a new election fills it properly. The governor is the titular head of the party for the state. 1889 is when the first governor of South Dakota took office, who was Arthur C. Mellett. We'll get to him in a bit, but yeah. But that's a look at the office of governor. Let's look at the list of governors. Your first governor, as we already mentioned, Arthur C. Mellett, 1889. Last governor of the Dakota Territory, first governor of the state of South Dakota. Civil War veteran, serving 89 to 93, a full 4 years, more or less. Charles H. Sheldon, serving from 1893 to 1897, second governor First two were Republicans. Number 3 was a populist, Andrew Erickson Lee. Third governor, serving 1897 to 1901. And then 1901 to 1905, we had Charles N. Harried, another Republican. 1905 to 1907, so only 2 years, Samuel H. Elrod, attorney, 5th governor. So yeah. Then we have 1907 to 1909, Co. I. Crawford, 2 years in office, another Republican, attorney, 6th governor, and a senator in the U.S. Congress. So, he even did some national representation for the state. 1809 to 1913. So it didn't take us long to cross over into the 1900s, because again, 1889 is when it became an official state. But number 7, Republican, 7th governor. Number 8, we have Frank M. Byrne, 1913 to 1917. Businessman, politician. Peter Norbeck, 1917 to 1921. Really? Oh, I don't want you to... I want to be able to read the guy's information. Really? Then you go all the way down? Really? Okay. Politician from South Dakota. Served 2 terms as the 9th governor. 3 consecutive terms in the United States Congress as a senator. And the first native-born governor of South Dakota to serve in office. So, yeah. With the state having been so young, everybody who preceded them more likely were born elsewhere. Then 1921 to 1925, William H. McMaster, 10th governor, U.S. Senator for South Dakota. Carl Gunderson. Then we get a Democrat, William J. Bulow, the first Democrat we have. Then Warren Green, Republican. Then Tom Berry, Democrat. Then Leslie Jensen, Republican. Harlan J. Bushfield, Merrill Q. Sharp, George T. Mickelson, Sigurd Anderson, Joe Foss. All those were Republicans. Then when you get another Democrat with Ralph Herseth. Then back to Republican with Archie M. Gubrud, Niels Bowe, Frank Farrar, another Democrat, Richard F. Nelp, followed by another Democrat with Harvey Woolman. Then we get back to Republicans, Bill Janklow, George S. Mickelson, Walter Dale Miller, Bill Janklow again for another 8-year term. Then Mike Rounds, Dennis Dugard, Kristi Noem, and Larry Roden, the current governor. But yeah, that's the list of governors who have run the executive office over history of the state here. Now, let's go ahead and look at the pages here. But as you can see, Attorney General Marty Jackley. I was trying to see if they had an available link to click on, but and then the governor Larry Roden, the lieutenant governor Tony Van Heusen or Van Huizen. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. There's what's called the Public Utilities Commission, which has 3 seats. I'm assuming these are elected by the people, but I haven't seen anything other than elected office is where I found them in the government's website. So, yeah. You have Public Utilities Commission, Chris Nelson, Christy Fegan, and Gary Hansen. So, yeah. Then we have the treasurer, Josh Hader. Auditor, Rich Satgast. This is supposed to be Secretary of State, Monet L. Johnson. Commissioner of School and Public Lands, Brock L. Greenfield. And then the cabinet positions. The Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources, Hunter Roberts. Department of Corrections, Nick Lamb. Department of Economic Development, Bill Even. Department of Education, Joe Graves. Department of Finance and Management, Jim Terwilliger. Kevin Roebling is the Commissioner for Game, Fish, and Parks. The year Commissioner of Health is Melissa Hagstadt. Commissioner of Human Resources and Administration, Darren Seeley. Commissioner of Human Services, Shawnee Rechtenball. Commissioner of Information and Technology, Mark Wixon. Commissioner of Labor and Regulation, Marcia Holtman. Commissioner of the Military is Major General Mark R. Morrell, who serves as Adjutant General of the South Dakota National Guard. Your Commissioner of Public Safety, Bob Perry. Commissioner of Revenue, Michael Howdyshell. Commissioner of Social Services, Matt Althoff. Commissioner of Tourism, Jim Hagan. I don't know why I called him Jill. Commissioner of Transportation, Joe Junt. Commissioner of Tribal Relations, Elgin Young. And Commissioner of Veterans Affairs, Jeremiah Schneider. But that's a look at the cabinet for the state of South Dakota. Whoop. Now, let's look at the South Dakota legislature. It is bicameral, 2-chambered legislature. You have a Senate president, which is your lieutenant governor, presiding over Senate tie-breaking votes. Tony Van Huizen, Senate President pro tempore Chris Carr, and the House of Representatives Speaker John Hanson. 25 voting members in the two chambers altogether, with 35 senators. Currently 32 Republicans to 3 Democrats and 0 vacant. It says 3, but there's 4 blue dots. I think somebody's mistyped something. Anyway, the House of Representatives, 70 members, 64 Republican, 6 Democrats, even though they show 7 blue dots. Someone's mislabeling stuff. Let's see. The two houses are similar in most respects, both holding the right to confirm gubernatorial appointments to certain offices, like your cabinet and stuff. So, the Senate votes by roll call vote, whereas the larger House uses an electronic voting system. So, Senate goes, they call out the names, and you gotta shout here. And of course, you don't shout out anything if they're not there. Whereas, the House of Representatives clicks in electronic voting system, so it brings them up. Which makes sense when you've got a much bigger body. But yeah. Again, capital is Pierre, South Dakota, which means the legislative capitol building is in Pierre. Legislative sessions are only 40 working days in the odd number years and 35 in the even number years. So, and remember, we're saying working days, Monday through Friday. So, we're not counting Saturday, Sundays. Which still, that's not a lot of days to do legislative work. But apparently in recent years, they've completed its work in 38 working days in both even and odd number years. So, generally, the legislature meets for 4 out of every 5 business days each week until the session ends, excepting on the last day, which is delayed to allow for consideration of gubernatorial vetoes. This schedule enables legislators to have 1 working day each week at home in their districts to meet with the constituents, as well as to tend to other personal matters. In addition, the legislature occasionally meets on Saturdays to make up for holiday recesses such as President's Day, MLK Day, where they come so early in the year. The administrative support for the legislature is provided by the South Dakota Legislative Research Council. Thought I had that pulled up here. I may be wrong on that. Or is it over here, I'm thinking? I may be wrong on that. But anyway, hop back over here to Wiki. The Republican Party has held a supermajority since 1996, and in the state house even longer, since 1976. So, yeah. Senate since 96 and the House since 76. Since 1993, legislators have been limited to serving 4 consecutive 2-year terms in a single house, but there is no limit on the number of non-consecutive terms they may serve. So yeah, you can serve, leave for a term, come back and serve, leave, come back and serve. Although you can even serve, 4 consecutive? So you can serve 8 years in a row, take a term off, come back and serve another so many terms. Interesting. State legislators are elected to 35 legislative districts. Each multi-member district elects 1 senator, 2 representatives. Okay. The districts are redrawn every 10 years, as is common with districts in both federal and state. It follows the U.S. Census maps. Let go. There you go. But yeah, I look at the legislature now. The only thing on the frickin' courts I could find was 2 courts. The South Dakota Supreme Court, which is of course in Pierre. You have 5 positions, a Chief Justice and 4 Associate Justices. They serve 8-year terms. I wonder if they're nominated for the first term, or appointed for the first term and then elected after, because we see that in a lot of states. Or, let's see, justices face a non-political retention election 3 years after appointment. So yeah, they get appointed, and then after 3 years, you get elected. And it's elected every 8 years. So yeah, highest appellate court, reviewing decisions from the circuit court. It looks at executive powers of the governor and authorized to issue original or remedial writs. Yeah, talk about the courts as a territory, and then statehood, modern day. There are districts for the Supreme Court, which follow county lines. You have District 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So 1 justice from each district. You notice Minnehaha is the only one that has its own county as a district. The rest of them, it's multiple counties. But District 2, pretty big. But I reckon that was supposed to be the biggest metro area. Pierre, capital. Sioux City, biggest city, and then the biggest metro area was Minnehaha. But anyway, your justices for the South Dakota Supreme Court are Chief Justice Stephen R. Jensen and Associate Justices Mark Salter, Patricia Devaney, Scott P. Myron, and Robert Gosinski. But yeah, that's a look at the Supreme Court of South Dakota, which brings us to the other court I've got information on, the circuit courts. They are 7 judicial circuits with 38 circuit judges who are elected by voters of the district in nonpartisan elections to 8-year terms, or can be appointed by the governor when there is a vacancy. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of South Dakota appoints one judge in each circuit to act as presiding circuit judge. And they supervise and administer operations within each circuit. They are the trial courts of general jurisdiction and have original jurisdiction in criminal and civil cases, with exclusive jurisdiction in trials concerning felonies, civil cases, and an amount in controversy in excess of $10,000, as well as appellate jurisdiction over appeals from magistrate courts and administrative agencies. And that's all it's got on the circuit courts. Yeah, just not a lot of information on South Dakota. Sorry, y'all. I apologize if y'all wanted more information, but yeah, it just wasn't there as far as Wikipedia is concerned anyway. But with that, we'll go ahead and end this. Where is the stupid mouse? Mouse? There it is. Damn it. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and end this episode here. As always, thank you all for watching. Educate thyself. Think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. I'll be putting my sources in the description box below the video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, later.